Audio Jungle.
All right, last team for today is the Las Vegas Raiders, who in the 2023 season they finished 8-9 and finished second in their division, which was pretty shocking. Awful division that they had last year. The Chargers obviously had some bad injury luck, and the Broncos are a complete dumpster fire. So under Josh McDaniels, they went 3-5. Under Antonio Pierce, they went 5-4. Their home record was 6-3. Their away record was 2-6. Key wins: Chiefs on the road, big win against the Chiefs, and then they beat the Packers in the beginning of the season, which you infamously said on social media after that game that you do not want to see the Packers game ever again for the rest of the season. And they went on to be like one of the most fun teams to watch in the NFL. So
that's right. We own the jinx on this podcast.
So all of that being said, I know I just flew through that. So first, give me your opinion on their 2023 season last year. And then second, I want to hear what you think about the Antonio Pierce hire.
So 8-9. What surprised me was they went 4-2 in the AFC West, which I didn't expect that whatsoever. But 8-9 for them, they should be throwing a parade because of the quarterback situation that they had. They had Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden O'Connell, and
Brian Hoyer
play quarterback for them at one point. So the fact that they won 8 games with those 3 guys playing quarterback is a miracle. The Antonio Pierce hire, I believe last year I was saying that they should have made him the head coach. I think those guys play hard for him. I just don't think they had enough talent on that roster last year for him to do a whole lot. So for him to go 5-4, beat Kansas City at Kansas City, I mean, I would say that that's a pretty successful 9 games for him.
I think so. Ultimately, this team has absolutely no direction. I think that their record is a little bit like luck of the draw. Obviously, you have to give them a nod for beating the Chiefs, but you played in a division with the Chargers, who legitimately were dumpster fire material last year. Earlier in the year, when Brandon Staley was there, he was just like a shell of himself. And then towards the end of the year, when they beat him again, every single player
3-20.
Everybody was hurt.
Eason
Stick was playing quarterback for them. It was just, they were bad. And then obviously the Broncos. So I think that they really benefited from being an average team in a bad division with obviously just the Chiefs in there to compete with. But as for the Antonio Pierce hire, man, another awful hire of a head coach for them. Absolutely snap decision. This team has no direction. They don't have a quarterback. They don't really have that great of a roster, and you hire AP and their mentality is to kind of win games now, but that isn't what's going to set them up for success in any way, shape, or form. So questionable hire. I don't know. We'll get into that during the 2024 season predictions, but I think that ultimately, looking at what happened during the 2023 season, I think it's a little bit luck of the draw and inflated based on the outcome. But ultimately, they did go and win the football games.
Do you want to know what I think they're doing this season? Do you know what I think they're playing for?
What?
I think they're playing for Shadur Sanders.
I mean, good for them.
I think that's what you do when you bring in Gardner Minshew as your quarterback, as your starting quarterback. I think they use this as a gap year and hope that they're bad enough to bring in one of these quarterbacks next year.
All right. Well, we'll get into that. Roster additions.
Which they had some good ones.
Michael Gallup, Christian Wilkins, Gardner Minshew, Delmar Glaze, Alexander Madison, Harrison Bryant, and then they drafted Brock Bowers again.
Jackson Powers Johnson too.
And they drafted Jackson Powers Johnson again. Just confusing to me, honestly.
It's a weird group of additions, but it's not bad. it just doesn't feel like it's very. You put it perfectly. Confusing.
It feels like reading that and seeing what they're doing. And this is why I said that. Like you're saying, I think their plan is to take a gap year and try to get Shedeur Sanders. I based on like podcasts, listening to AP talk, listening to Max Crosby talk, they like want to win football games. Like they're not like,
well, yeah. What are you gonna say? You want to lose? You win 8
that's
games.
what the Cardinals did.
Yeah, but that feels like a very different situation as far as like how often do you see teams come out there and say, "Yeah, we're trying to lose," especially if you just won 8 games.
You'll never say that, but that's
especially if you won 8 games and your division's bad.
I mean, I would. Well, you have the Super Bowl champs in your division. The Chargers are going to be infinitely better this upcoming season. And
yeah, but I don't think the Chargers are going to be like insane.
The Chargers are 150 times better than the Raiders, and it's not close.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that, but it's not like I think the Chargers are going to win the division.
I don't know. Roster losses: Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Josh Jacobs, Hunter Renfrow, and Jerry Tiller. Again, like I just don't know. You get rid of Hunter Renfrow, who I guess he's washed. I have no clue. But then you get Michael Gallup in the building, who's like also washed. So like, it's just random in my opinion. It's just
mid for mid right there.
Obviously the Christian Wilkins signing's good. I was not expecting him to go to the Raiders. So like that defensive line is going to be a problem. And as for the Brock Bowers signing, or the draft pick of Brock Bowers, it was completely directionless in my opinion. And the reason I say that is because you took Michael Mayer in the second round the year before, and what you're going to be paying Brock Bowers as a salary is what the top tight ends in the NFL get paid right now. So I just thought that was a bad pick. It's not what they needed. I know he was like technically like best available on the board, but that was a directionless pick and money going towards a position that honestly is like give or take. There's not many great tight ends in the league, and I don't know what Brock Bowers is going to be. I think he's going to be special, but also at the same time, Aiden O'Connell is going to be throwing him the football. So I don't know. Are they going to use him in the correct way? That's the question.
I think the only incorrect way to use Brock Bowers is not getting him the football. I don't really think there's much to it. I think if you get him the football, I think he'll probably be all right.
I don't know.
I mean, just based off of what we've seen, I don't know. I don't know either, but my assumption is if you get him the football, I feel like you're going to have some success.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. I think he's probably best suited as like if you can get him like artificial touches, like handoffs, bubble screens, like getting the ball in his hand and let him like create in space. But I
don't know if you need. I think you can do way more than that. I think he creates a very big issue if linebackers are lined up on him.
I get they just don't. Me and you talked. You literally yelled at me about how they don't have anybody to get him the football. I
think Gardner Minshew is good enough. I think he's better than those.
As of right now, I read a report right before we did this. Gardner Minshew is not the starter this year. It's Aiden O'Connell as of right now. So I am going to go out based off that information.
Well, then it's going to be a shit show.
Okay. So again, I just think that like adding him and like I said, I don't know if they're going to use him in the correct way. I hope they do. If they don't, I think it's a questionable draft pick regardless. Anything about like their roster losses? I mean, you obviously lose Josh Jacobs, but I don't know. Zamir White looks like a tank, so I don't know. Maybe he's good.
They got Alexander Madison too, right?
He fucking sucks.
I know. No, I was just gonna say it's not like it's just Zamir White. I had both of those guys.
Sorry,
obviously
he's so bad.
Jeez,
he's bad.
All I was gonna say was, I was more so just confirming that you said the name.
Yeah.
When you were going through the additions,
and Harrison Bryant, they signed another tight end. Like they have 55 tight ends on this.
They're going old Patriots on us.
Go ahead.
I mean, obviously losing Josh Jacobs hurts. I think he was the leading rusher in the NFL last year.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, and if he was probably top 5 last year. But I don't think paying a running back is probably in the best situation for the Raiders right now. I don't think that's in their best interest. I don't know what the Alexander Madison contract was, so I could be very incorrect with my statement, but
Nothing. He didn't get paid
I
anything.
don't
He
think
is legitimate.
I
He is
don't
like legitimately bad.
I don't think that paying Josh Jacobs was probably was the right move. So it sucks to let a guy like that leave, but probably for the best for now.
Weaknesses. I put ownership first. There's a ton of
Yeah,
weaknesses. First, I'm going
ownership.
to go ownership. They're still paying John Gruden. They're still paying Josh McDaniels. And after the season, they're probably going to be paying Antonio Pierce too, because they're going to probably end up firing him.
Wait, no, don't they have to? Doesn't Antonio Pierce, like, all of his money has to go towards his wife because she's bankrupt?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if that's true or not. That was just something like I saw on Twitter, but I don't know if that's true or not.
That'd be wild.
So I put ownership for just making snap bad decisions from a coaching hire perspective. They seem to like not be able to get it right. Drafting. If you look at the Raiders draft for like their first round of their draft,
bad.
literally for like the last decade, it's just been flat terrible. They infamously took Henry Ruggs and David Arnett in the same draft. They're both out of the league. They both had legal troubles. Alex Leatherwood, they took in the first round of the draft. He's like, doesn't play anymore. He's bouncing off in and off teams.
He smells so bad too.
They can't get the draft right. They took Tyree Wilson last year. He was a below average impact edge rusher for them. I don't know. They just can't get the draft right. So that's why when Brock Bowers got picked by them, I was like low key, like, I don't know. I just like didn't love it. So, drafting. Next, the QB room, Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell, and whoever else is in there. That's an awful QB room, respectfully. I don't have the same trust in the offensive coordinator as I do in Shane Steichen, which he is always going to get the best out of whichever quarterback that he has. And that's why you saw Gardner Minshew kind of flourish in that offense last year, because you had such a great play caller like Shane Steichen.
I was going to say that too, so I'm glad you mentioned it.
The last thing too of this weakness, and I said it in the beginning, this team has absolutely no direction. You have the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL in Devonta Adams, who's 32 years old, who's past his prime and has absolutely no business being on this football team. And it's sad to watch his career play out like this at the end. You have Jacoby Myers. You paid him again. Like, you just don't need a wide receiver if you can't get him the football. And lastly, you obviously have Max Crosby, who's one of the biggest dogs in the entire NFL. He's one of my favorite players ever. But with all of that being said, it seems like if this season goes really bad, I know that he says he wants to be a Raider for life, and I genuinely believe that. But at a point with this team, like, they might have to like look around and like evaluate a lot from their top level prospects, because you can't keep paying all of these guys all this money. At a point, you might just have to reset. I think this team right now is 2024 worst record watch by far.
Yeah, I think that they're probably not going to. I mean, I don't know. Like, if Aiden O'Connell goes in there and is the starting quarterback, I've got absolutely zero faith in this team. Now, I understand all the things that you said about Gardner Minshew, and I do agree with you, but I still think that he's better than Aiden O'Connell. But not by like a substantial amount. Mm-hmm. I think the bright spot is going to be this defense. They were probably the only reason they were in some of these games last year. They were 7th in points per game. All these other stats that I'm looking at, they're like 10, 11 as far as pass defense goes. Run defense wasn't great, but
yeah, I mean,
other than, like, you basically just gotta rely on that defense and hope that they can keep you in these games, and then just pray that you're going to get enough out of Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell on the offensive side of things.
Yeah, strengths. Like, their defense legitimately played at a top 10 level last season. There's just there's no debating that. Once AP took over, that defense was legit. And Max Crosby is probably, he's not the best edge rusher, but he's up there. Like, he's a
probably
dog.
top 5.
Yeah, he's definitely top 5. And but other than that, bro, like I just think that their defense their offense has a lot left to be desired. I feel like it's a lot of fluff and no, like all bite no bark, or all bark no bite. You have so much talent. Like I love Jacoby Myers. I think Jacoby Myers is a great number 2 wide receiver. He's a dog. But it doesn't matter if you don't have anybody getting him the football. Same with Devonta Adams. Like, what's the point of spending $30 million on a receiver next season that isn't going to be able to make an impact because you don't have somebody who's like really able to sling it to him? So I just feel like at a point that they really have to look at themselves in the mirror and make some decisions.
I'm looking up who the OC is for them, and it looks like they just brought in Luke Getsy, and
Yeah,
he
Luke
was
Getsy.
the OC from the Bears, I think it was last year.
Bears offense sucked last year.
Yeah, that's not great.
Like
that's not great.
I don't love any of the moves that they made. I think, like I said, they're just directionless. Like you hire AP off of hype, which is fine. Like I get it. The guys loved him and they were passionate, but at a point, like we talk about this in the NFL, in the NBA all the time. When you allow the players to have like all that power, which it seems like the owner of the Raiders, I forget his name, Mark Davis,
Yeah,
is just like letting them kind of have that power. Like it was kind of publicized that like Tay and Max Crosby were like, yo, if you don't hire AP, like we want out, like essentially, which
I think it was probably a combination of that plus like Mark Davis finally saw a winning season and saw
winning
not
season.
winning season, sorry, 8-9. It saw like some steps in the right direction and was like, all right, cool, this is perfect. Let's just bring this guy in. So I don't know if he like fully, I don't even think, did they even interview anybody else or did they just name him head coach like right at the end of the season, I think.
I don't recall them interviewing anybody else. They did not name him the head coach right at the end of the season. They waited for a little bit, but I am going to go out on a limb and say that there were definitely better options for them to hire. I mean, I think Slowick would have been a good option. I think the Seattle coach that we just talked about would be a good option for them. I don't know. I just think like I said, the Raiders are going to be the Raiders. They can't seem to get anything right, and I'm not going to look at what they did last year and have it have any impact on what I think. Like I said, my 2024 prediction is this team is worst record in the NFL watch for me personally.
Yeah, I have them winning 6 games, 6-10.
So you like them?
6-11. Sorry, 6-11.
You like them?
I like them enough from a defensive standpoint, and if Gardner Minshew ends up playing, I think they win 6 games.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well,
I think their defense is plenty good enough to keep them in football games. Like they also have like their schedule is not that great. But
the reason that I say all of this as well is like the Chiefs are obviously the Chiefs.
Yeah.
The Chargers, no matter what anybody like, when we touch on the Chargers, we'll touch on the Chargers. It's another team that I'm extremely high on. The Chargers are going to be a completely different football team this season. And then I'm swapping back and forth genuinely on I think that in this division, we're going to see either the Raiders or the Broncos have the worst record in the NFL. I think when I look at those teams, I think the Raiders obviously have a little bit better of talent on their team just because they have like those big names. But overall, I just think that they're both bad. I just think they're both bad football teams.
Yeah, I definitely I'd rather have the Broncos as like my worst team watch for sure.
And the reason
like I could see the Broncos winning I could see it going Broncos winning 3 games, Raiders winning 6 games, Chiefs winning 9 and Chargers winning 9 and Chiefs winning 12.
Yeah, and the only reason why I'm even slightly considering putting the Broncos in front of the Raiders is the coaching advantage. That's the only reason. I think I'd much rather have Sean Payton as my head coach and play caller for my offense rather than what the Raiders have. And that's the only thing right now where I'm like debating in my head of like which team's going to be worse. And I'm like leaning the Raiders just because of like their coaching that they have.
But see, I think I just can't get behind how good I think the defense is going to be. But the offense is like the offense in question is significantly less in question, I think, than the Broncos. Like, I don't even know who the Broncos even have on their offense at this point. Like, Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Coming off an ACL.
He's not off.
No, he was healthy. He was healthy. He played at the end of this. He played last year. I'm thinking 2 years ago, right? He got hurt.
Yeah.
But like,
I don't know. I just think that I've seen Sean Payton put out good offenses with below average talent. Like when he went on they went 6-0 when Teddy Bridgewater was at the helm, when Drew Brees went down like 5 years ago or whatever. Like I've seen him turn like nothing into something. And that's why I just like, I think that he has earned a little bit more respect from a coaching standpoint than who the Raiders have at the helm for them and Antonio Pierce and their coordinators and everything involved. I just think that that's where the Broncos are superior. I don't think their roster's superior. I have no clue what they have at quarterback. Apparently they have the next Patrick Mahomes, but as of a coaching aspect, which I think me and you have talked about a lot, we think matters a ton.
It's important.
I think the Raiders probably have one of the worst coaching staffs in the NFL.
And that's saying something because there's a lot of new coaches going all over the place.
AP just he's proven nothing. He's never, unless if somebody can call me out in the comments and let me know, I have never seen Antonio Pierce be a successful head coach anywhere. And it seems like he kind of just got thrusted into this Raiders position, and they went on a little bit of a run last season. Great for them. But I think that like they did not see anything with clear eyes. They like were just like like you said, like, oh my gosh, we won 8 games. Like, this is awesome. Like, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, okay, that's fine.
That Chiefs game is probably the sole reason he got hired. If they lose that game, he probably doesn't get the head coaching job.
No, definitely. I think that you're completely right with that. But with all of that being said, just because they beat the Chiefs last season, he went 5-4 during that time, almost 500. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, okay, like AP's like the next great head coach in the NFL. I just think that he hasn't proven anything. And if he shuts me up and the Raiders are decent this season and win a bunch of games, finish second in the division again, then I'm dead fucking wrong about AP. But I think that, like I said, I think that this is going to get a lot worse than people think. I think that this team could be really bad. And I think that like the first person that's going to get thrown under the bus is Antonio Pierce.
I mean, yeah, I don't know who else would get thrown under the bus because it's not like these quarterbacks in the room are like it's not like they're expected to be good. Like, it's not like Gardner Minshew realistically is like the 34th best quarterback in the NFL. Maybe 32nd.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Check out the Ringer.
Check out the Ringer quarterback ranking. Steven Ruiz has a great quarterback ranking. See where he has him. Here, I'll look.
So it's not like they're expecting him to go out there and win 10 games. And how often does a defensive player realistically get thrown under the bus?
Never.
Like, Max Crosby's not going to get thrown under the bus. So the only option left is to throw Antonio Pierce under it. So I think you're right. I think if it does start out sour at the beginning of this season, we're going to hear people start talking about, oh, was Antonio Pierce the right hire? Did they hire him simply off of
the hype?
Off of hype and off of a whim, and didn't do a thorough coaching interview session, and which I don't even think they did.
I don't know. I have no clue. I don't think that they took the proper steps to really put themselves out there on the market and take everything into account before they made that final decision. Gardner Minshew was ranked as the 32nd best QB.
I was right. I was pretty close.
Steven Ruiz and hold on. And then Aiden O'Connell was ranked 38th. So we're talking about like barely like level starters in the NFL, according to the Ringer, Steven Ruiz, who always puts that out. If you guys have never looked at his QB rankings, it's amazing.
Where's Jameis at on there?
I don't know. I'll look.
So I said 34, and I was thinking like there might be a backup or two on some of these teams, but then I was like, oh wait, there's definitely rookies that he's better than right now.
Joe Flacco was put at 31,
as he should be.
But listen, at the end of the day, I hate to go in on the Raiders. I just think at a point, like, why wouldn't you, like, Bill Simmons talked about this the other day with Russillo, and I think know what I'm going to talk about. A lot of like these NBA franchises like don't have a shot at winning, but they're like going all in to win, and with these rosters, they still don't have a chance to win. The Raiders are a team that I look at, and I'm just like, you guys like legitimately like don't have a QB.
Yeah.
Why are you rolling into the season? Like, go and trade Tay Adams for anything that you could possibly get. I don't know what his value is. It's probably nothing crazy, but go and get something for Tay Adams currently, because in a year, like, he might not be worth anything because he might retire or whatever that may be. And I look at that as like, you need at a point to look at yourselves in the mirror, realize what you are, and then adjust accordingly. And what I mean by that is like, when there is like good defensive players on the board or good O linemen on the board and all of that stuff, you don't go and draft Brock Bowers. Yeah. Like, it's just like they always make these weird, interesting choices where what they're indicating by their actions is that they think that they're a lot further ahead than what you think. Where what you said at the beginning, you were like, I think that they're taking this as a gap year. I look at all of their moves, signing Christian Wilkins, drafting Brock Bowers, like all of this stuff, and I look at it as like, oh, these guys think that they can win.
I mean, I think the reason I said that is because they didn't make a significant move at quarterback. So like, if they were to try and bring in somebody better, I don't know who they would have gotten, but I think if you bring in Gardner Minshew, you either bring him in as a gap quarterback or as a backup, is kind of how I've looked at Gardner Minshew the last couple of years. Like, realistically, the Colts didn't think that he was going to be their starting quarterback for majority of the season. So you bring him in as a reliable guy behind Anthony Richardson. I think the Raiders, like, if I'm in the Raiders situation, I mean, I guess I just start Aiden O'Connell because I think he's going to be bad. And then you end up getting a top 10 pick, and you can take Shadur Sanders, or you can take Carson Beck, depending on where you go. You can take Quinn Ewers where you go. Like, that's kind of how I'm looking at it. Is like, okay, then you do get one of those guys, and we've said this plenty of times. Like, you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. Like, that's kind of the cheat code. So maybe that's like how they're looking at it. That's kind of how I am trying to look at it with this roster.
Raiders
like,
fans,
you bring in a rookie quarterback and like you put him around the guys that they have on offense, and that's not bad.
Yeah, it's not. But at what point is it like a little too late? That's what I'm thinking now. Where it's like, maybe, but like, at what point is it too late? And
I mean, we've seen what a rookie quarterback the last couple of years kind of played pretty well, to a point where like you feel really good about your situation, right? Like, maybe that's like 1 year off isn't probably the end of the world. Maybe for Devontae Adams, since
that's
he's
what
old,
I'm saying.
Like,
you lose Devontae Adams, who, whatever.
But then you get his money off the book, and then you have that open spot, and you're like, okay, we've got all this money now that we don't have to pay him. I don't know what his contract looks like. I could be wrong, but you could put that into a younger guy.
That's fair. That's a fair point. It's a very fair point. So, Raiders fans, listen, I'm not trying to go too in on you guys. I just want to see the Raiders be good, because Vegas is a cool spot. They haven't been good since they had that Derek Carr season where they went to the playoffs, but like, I want to see them get like a good young talent at quarterback and be a fun football team, because the Raiders is a sweet Vegas is a sweet destination. So
what's going to end up happening is the Raiders are going to suck. They're not going to get one of these quarterbacks. They're going to draft the kid from Missouri, the wide receiver, and then they're still going to be in quarterback purgatory moving forward.
I hope not. No, I didn't. Hey,
that kid's tough. That kid
Raiders
is tough
fans.
from Missouri, though.
If you guys saw this video, I didn't say that. That was him. Don't come at me in the comments. All right. That's it.
That's just
all
how
I
the
got.
Raiders draft goes.
That's all I got today.
I did look back at this. The last like legitimate star, or I mean, not even. I don't even need to say star, but like was 2015 when they took Amari Cooper, but then they got rid of him. So like, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And he's still playing at a high level. Like so, whatever. Like I gave it all I got today. I left it all out on the floor.
Yeah.
The Raiders are going to win the Super Bowl. All right.
What is it? What is the song? The autumn wind is a pirate. Something like that.
I have no idea.
The Raiders fans know what I mean. Sorry, Raiders fans. I butchered that, but you know what I meant.
All right, brother. Stay safe.
All right.
Audio Jungle.